Right, so I'll try and do this as quickly as I can. This is a piece of grey board. It's quite flimsy, but it should do the job. I usually have ones that are a little bit heavier. And I've just covered it with a piece of, this is a masterboard I made and copied, and it's just basically for a base. I've got all my little scraps of paper, which I've torn very roughly into strips or squares. I've got dark, medium, pale text, some with numbers on, some with texture on, all sorts of things. These are actually some that somebody gave me, so I'm not quite sure what they are, but they've got a nice texture on them. All I do is get my papers, whichever one I want to use. I'll just do this with the white one so you can see. Get a ruler, and if you watch Seth Apter's video on creating his art chips, you'll see all he does is just rip using the ruler as a guide. So I do basically the same. I start off the same as him and then just work through my art processes and do what I want to do. So I've got my base, which is the chip grey board. I'll put the unused one there. I've got this old calendar just on the side so I can use it to apply my glue. I've got 2 or 3 fairly boldish bits that I might use as a focal point. I'm not sure yet till I get there. I've also got some stamped images which I can cut out. So I'll put those aside for the moment and we'll start work. All I do basically is start with a framework of squares or strips of collage material. This is just some inked up watercolour card, and I just collage it on. So I'll do that, and I will speed the video up slightly so it doesn't take quite so long. So as you can see, I've got all my layers of paper on. It is quite textural because there's quite a few layers in quite a few places. All the Pritt stick is about dry. I've got some foil that I've used foil with Pritt sticks for quite a long time. If you just want a little bit of a highlight, you can just put a bit of Pritt stick on, or PVA glue, whichever. Dab your foil on and it sticks to the Pritt stick. Let's see a bit more on there. I don't know if you can see that, there's just little bits of areas just for a bit of a highlight. I'll put a bit more on there. You can also use PVA glue if you want a little bit. You can just put a little bit of PVA glue, dab it with your finger just to make it not as thick. Leave it to dry for a little bit so it's just tacky, and then put your foil on. You can leave your foil on and it'll dry, PVA will dry, and then your foil will stick to it. But you can see there it's stuck. The PVA method is a little bit more controllable than the Pritt stick method. My next layers will be some homemade tissue tape and or some napkin. I've got this napkin which is dots, which is quite nice, and I'll just put that on with a little bit of decoupage glue. I sometimes use the Pritt stick because you can get it to stick with the Pritt stick, but sometimes it's not ideal. So I'm just going to use a little bit of decoupage glue just to put a little bit of napkin. This is just a dotty black one. I think I want a little bit across that corner, and then you'll be able to see the other things through, because the decoupage glue will make it vanish a little bit more. Not completely, but I've still got Pritt stick on my fingers, so that's why that's stuck. I think that'll do. So now I think we'll have a little bit of stamping just to finish it off before we do the final bit. I think I'm going to just ink the edges just to darken them a little bit. I just feel like I want a dark frame to this. And this is just black archival ink. Because it's going on to different surfaces, I could have used stays on, but I tend to find my archival does okay. And then just these are some indigo blue stamps, just different sort of designs basically. This is a nice one for the edges. I like the text because it's sort of a grid design. I quite like the grid one, but there's also some circles. A little bit of this one. Just in a couple of places. And maybe there. Oil pastels. Right, so, no, not that one. Maybe not that one. Yeah, that one. This is just, it's a lino print that I did. First ever lino print, very, very rough, but I actually like it. And I just actually stamped it onto just normal copier paper with my archival ink pad. But it's turned out fine. It has a few gaps which I do like, but I'm just going to add a little bit more interest in these gaps. I want it just to have a bit more about it than it did. So I think that I actually like, and I think I'm going to pop that there because it's quite a dramatic focal point. I might add a word if I can find one that fits. Just get my blue sheet again. Way around. So I think I really like that. Just needs a little bit of something along there. Don't know. This is a 8B graphite pencil, and it is quite nice for smudging. It's better. And sometimes around the focal area I will just put my reading glasses on that so I can see better. I'll go round the edge of my focal point with an 8B pencil or a Stabilo. You can probably hear it's raining quite badly. So I'll go around the edge of my focal point, and then I get a cotton bud and just smudge out the pencil, the graphite pencil, and it just gives a little bit of shading around the outside. You can also do this with your Stabilo all as well, if I can find a sharp one. Go around the edge, which tends to be a bit blacker, a bit darker. Depending on the look you want. I think I quite like this quite dark. And again, it will smudge out. To give you a bit of shading round the edge. There we are. So I think I'm quite happy with that as it is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some heat embossing. It just gives it a completely different effect. So I've got I keep one of these, it's just a little mini Versamark watermark stamp pad, and it is the mucky one because it might pick up some of the ink and everything off here. So I keep it especially for this. Because when it goes over my Stabilo all, it might pick a bit of the black up, you see, so just going to go everywhere to try and get it everywhere. Put it on some spare paper. Depending on the colour of the art chip, I use either vintage beeswax or just this clear embossing powder, which is just a Paper Mania one. I've had it years. I'll need maybe a second coat on some bits. Lid on. Yeah, needs a second coat. Yes, so there you can see it's very, very shiny. I hope that you can catch that in the light. It is about cooled. So the next bit is something I've just discovered myself. Quite a lot of people say that you can, to take the shine away from your embossing powder, you can just give it a coat of matte medium. I like a sort of satin look to mine, so I just have, I'll show you, it's just Vaseline lip balm basically, and this is a cocoa butter one, so it smells nice. I've got a specific brush that I use for it, and I just pick a bit up on my brush, keep this brush just for this, get rid of the excess into the lid, and then just brush it across. This is obviously cooled. You wouldn't do this while it was hot, unless you would ruin your embossing. But it just knocks it back to a satin finish rather than a glossy finish. And it's rather nice, and it also smells nice. So I think that's got a nice coating on it, just maybe a little bit more, to work it into the cracks and crevices with it having quite a lot of texture on it. I'm very clumsy today. So there we are. Hopefully you can see that gives it more of a satin look. You can polish it off with just a soft cloth, just in case there's any excess. But there we are. That's our art chip.